Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So, as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, we are talking about how I was able to fall in love with reading again. Now, a couple things just to preface before we get into this video. First off, I never really felt out of love. It's just, as with any hobby, you kind of have moments of lull where you're not doing it as much, where you're not feeling it as much, which are normal. And then you have moments of almost hyperactivity where you're doing it all the time. You're doing it like every minute you possibly can. And then there's like an in between where it's like you're doing it, you're loving it, you're enjoying it. And there's also kind of like, I mentioned lulls, but there's also kind of something a little bit past that where it's like you haven't fully fallen out of love with the hobby, but there's something like missing where it's like you're not feeling it as much as you think you should. Now, I was also working on 2 videos that helped me fall back in love with reading. And with those 2 videos, I was talking about specific books that helped me fall back in love with reading. One was like just books that helped me fall in love with reading in general again, and then the other was falling back in love with fantasy. So those are coming out like the next 2 weeks after this video. And also, I thought it'd be good about talking about like falling back in love with reading because like it's a natural part of human and a natural part of our lives to have flows and ebbs with our hobbies, to fall in and out of all this stuff. And it's a natural part, and if it's something you want to, let me rephrase that. Sometimes you just need to full on take a break from reading. It's kind of like what I was talking about in my reading slumps video. My tips for reading slumps, which I'm going to link down below in the description, which I'm prepping right now. Slumps. And sometimes you just have to roll with it. If there's a hobby you're not feeling as much, sometimes you just need to full on stop. Take a break from it and then come back. Even if you're not necessarily in a reading slump, sometimes you just need to stop and back off it for a bit and be like, okay, I need a break. I need to just stop. So, anyway, to get into this video, because I don't want to talk too much, because I have 20 things I want to talk about, 20 like little things. So, these are the 20 ways that I was able to fall in love with reading again. These are in no particular order, no particular sequence. It's not really like what's most least important. It's not what happened first to last or most recent to like the earliest to the latest. It's in no particular order. It is just what I could think of that helped me fall back in love with reading. And honestly, like some of these are kind of like two sides of the same coin, and some of these are just out of little. I did try to group them together a little bit based on topic, but some of them are just out of the. I'm gonna actually put on my glasses because I want to try to get used to wearing glasses again and just see how this works. Okay, there's gonna be a little bit of glasses. Oh, I don't like how it. I don't know. I don't know how I feel like this. Let me try the ring lights because I feel like I need the ring light too. That's not too bad actually. So anyway, 20 ways I was able to fall back in love with reading again. Falling in love with reading again. First way is letting myself just read. And meaning that basically means if I was feeling like reading, then I'm feeling like reading and I'll start with it. Now, obviously I have other aspects of my life to attend to. I have my job, I have my buddies, I have my family. I have just my life to do outside of my hobbies. Now, I would love to be able to just sit, read all day, every day, all hours. that's not super feasible. But if I feel like I want to read, I just let myself read during my free time when I can. And then on the flip side, I also let myself just not read. If I don't feel like reading, then I don't read. And if I don't like I said earlier, like sometimes you just have to take a step back and not. It doesn't, even if you're not necessarily in a reading slump, like sometimes you're just not feeling it. Sometimes you're just not feeling like people. Sometimes you just feel like, sometimes you don't feel like, um, let's say like other hobbies you have. Sometimes you don't feel like doing as much crochet or embroidery or so on. And sometimes you just need to not. Sometimes you need to step away to be able to fall in love with it again. So those are the first two. Number three is diversifying the book formats. Now, this is more than just physical ebook, audiobook. It includes that. And that can really help with reading more if you feel like you want to read more. Not that you have to read more. I want to clarify it. You do not have to read more to be considered a reader. But it can help you read a little bit more. It can help you gain access to more books, because if you use like Libby and Hoopla, you can gain access to ebooks and audiobooks that you didn't have access to before. Um, and also, there are a lot of really good apps out there. Like there's Libro.fm for audiobooks, and then there's like a lot of the non-Amazon retailers will sell, especially if it's like a big chain, like they will sell ebook and audiobook formats, like Barnes and Noble does, and I think some of the big retail bookstore companies in other countries do as well. So, diversifying your book formats. And you don't have to commit to all three book formats. You don't have to do physical, ebook, and audiobook. You can just do physical and audiobook. You can do physical and ebook. You can do ebook and audiobook. You don't have to stick to all three. Um, for me, I don't do ebook as much anymore, and it's nothing against ebooks. It's just the past couple of years, I've had the hardest time with ebooks, and that's okay. I'm not gonna force myself to read an ebook. I'll just pick the audiobook. Um, moving on. Next one is to diversify your. Oh, actually, because I started to say it's not just the physical ebook and audiobook. It's also taking into consideration graphic novels. It's also taking into consideration manga and manhwa and light novels. Like there are so many other formats that you can do that are telling stories that you can read that really help to give you access to more stories that you will probably end up loving. You don't have to love every single one, and you are most likely not going to love every single story. But diversifying the book formats, both ebook, audiobook, and physical, and doing like novel versus light novel versus graphic novel versus manhwa or manga, it's like that can really help diversify your potential story base of books you will love, of stories you will love. So to get on to the next one is diversifying my author base. And this includes both authors that look like me and are like me, and both authors that, and as well as authors who do not look like me, who aren't like me. And part of that is just to diversify the worldview. But also too, it's like it's again the same situation as like with reading more manga or graphic novels. It's like you can find stories from pretty much any author that has published books, independently or traditionally published. You can find an author who will write a story that you will love, or who has written a story that you will love. And it doesn't matter if you're not from the same country, it doesn't matter if your skin color is not the same, it doesn't matter if your sexuality isn't the same, or if your gender is not the same. There is most likely a wide variety of authors who have told stories that you will love. So diversifying the author base can really help broaden that perspective. And I find for me that like there are a lot of authors that I've read recently that I didn't know about before. Like just to give an example, John Gwynne, because it was easy to grab. Malice was published I think in like 2012, I want to say 2013. So he's like, Knowledge has been out for, I don't know how long he's been a published author before this, but I only knew about him because the third book of the Bloodsworn trilogy was coming out, I think, last year or the year before. And like he's not a new author, but he's a new to me author. And then there's also Avery Cunningham, who wrote The Mayor of Maxwell Street. That was a debut novel. I wouldn't have heard of her if I wasn't doing Book of the Month. And the same with a lot of my Book of the Month authors. Like I wouldn't have heard of them otherwise. So diversifying your author base, it can look in a variety. It can be done in a variety of forms. Social media, book subscription boxes, even though I think you should stick with affordable ones. You should not be breaking your bank to do a book subscription box. But doing Libby and Hoopla, because Libby and Hoopla will have sections for, like, at least in the States, there's like the Black History Month, there's Native American Heritage Month, there's Women's History Month, there's AAPI Month. So Libby and Hoopla will have a section dedicated to those months. They'll also have sections dedicated to a lot of other stuff. So if you use Libby and Hoopla, you can access those and discover more authors that way. You can go to your physical libraries and ask the librarian for a recommendation from an author of XYZ background or XYZ nationality, you know? So diversifying your author base is a really good way because I have found some favorites by diversifying my author base. The next one, number 5, is utilizing my local libraries. So my local one, it's under renovation now, or maybe it's not. It's about, I don't know if it's under renovation or not in relation to when this video is going up. But it's closing, I think, April 20th, and it's currently April 15th. I am recording this a little bit out. But it's closing April 20th, so in about 5 days, and then reopening June 1st, I believe. And it's just for like some facility maintenance. But utilizing your local libraries, and if you don't have one super close to you that's convenient, Libby and Hoopla are amazing ways to keep track of, well, not just keep track, but utilizing your local library. And a really great way to still support libraries while not breaking the bank of trying to find books that you will love. So, because books can be expensive, and books are expensive, especially when you're reading a lot, and or if you're starting to read a lot more, but you don't have all the books on your bookshelf. Utilizing your local library can be a great way to break the bank, to not break the bank, to save the bank. Anyway, moving on. The next one is keeping books on my bookshelf that I enjoyed or will most likely enjoy. Now, I've talked about this a lot recently, but something I've been trying to do is have my bookshelves reflect what I've enjoyed or what I will most likely enjoy. And a large part of that is because I want to be happy when I see my bookshelves. And not that you can't be happy seeing what's like on your physical TBR, but like when I look at my bookshelves, when I look at my books, I want to be happy and think like, I had a really good time with that book. I had a really good time with that author. Oh look, there's my auto-buy author. Oh look, there's that series that I really liked. I may not really like the author, but there's that series I really liked. I want to be happy when I look at it. I want to be like, I enjoyed that, or that's a genre that I enjoy, so I should really enjoy that one. So, any books that having books that I've read and enjoyed, or having books from a genre that I really enjoy, like fantasy, historical fiction, 2 different genres, or them both together, like that makes me happy. So having my bookshelf reflect that is like the perfect way to have me fall back in love with reading, because it's like, hey, there is a lot that I've enjoyed. There are a lot of books that I will enjoy. And like I've said in other videos, life is too short to be focused. I've said it in a variety of ways, but life is too short to be focusing on the books you're not enjoying, to be reading the books you're not enjoying. And even if, like, I know the argument is like, I don't want to DNF because what if it gets better? But my argument for that would be, even if it does get better by the end, you're currently in a position where you're not enjoying that. So at what point does the ending being worth it? At what point is that outweighed by your experience with the book? Because if you think like the ending was good, but the part of the ending for you that was good was the last 10% of the book. So let's say that last 10% of the book was enjoyable for you. That means the other 90% of the book was not enjoyable. So it's like, at what point do the ends not justify the means, you know? At what point are the means of getting to that end that you liked? At what point are those not justified by how it ended? Getting a notification, I can't tell what it is. Anyway, so having books on my bookshelf that I enjoyed or will enjoy are a really great way to be like, hey, I love reading. I've really enjoyed these books. I really enjoy this genre. So having books on your bookshelves that you really enjoy or will really enjoy will really help with falling in love with reading again. And again, before I continue, I want to say that not all of these will work for everyone. These are what worked for me, and these are what helped me fall in love with reading again. Hopefully, some of these will help you, but honestly, like, sometimes, like I said, you just need to step back and allow yourself to take a break from it before you can fall back in love with reading again, or any hobby. But moving on to the next one is kind of in the same way of like having books on my bookshelf that I enjoyed. Having my books organized on my shelf in a way that I enjoy and not just organizing for the aesthetic. Now, organizing by rainbow can be really nice and it's really aesthetically pleasing. But I've talked about this on my channel before. It's like, I do like it, but I did like a test run with my book of the month for like a couple days, and I was just not enjoying it. Just because it's like, I'm kind of like, I don't have OCD, but like, I'm very picky with, I'm trying to phrase this right because I don't have OCD, but I'm very picky with how I organize my books. Especially like my manhwa graphic novels, I organize those by height and then by title. But with my novels, paperbacks, hardbacks, like the non-manga manhwa and graphic novel, like regular novels, paperback and hardback, like I'm very particular with how I organize that because I need to be able to see where exactly an author is roughly. And usually that means organizing by last alphabetical order, last name, or organizing by height. Because for the most part, an author's books, they will all be generally the same height, so they'll all be in the same area. And if the author's books, especially if I have two or more, if they're not in the same area because they're all different colors, then that bothers me. And like, I love having different colored books, but it bothers me if they're not all together because I like having them all together because I like seeing them all together. So it's like, rainbow for me does not work. And if I were to organize by rainbow, I would just get so frustrated and I would only be organizing it to have the aesthetic, which would kind of take out my love of reading a little bit because yes, it's organizing the physical books, but kind of like what I was mentioning earlier, like I want to be excited when I look at my books. And if the books are organized in a way that does not make me excited, that does not make you excited, then what's the point of having them organized for an aesthetic when it's not making you excited to look at your bookshelf? I'm going to take my glasses off, they're kind of annoying me. Um, but moving on, having them organized in a way that makes you happy. And if color makes you happy, if the aesthetic makes you happy, then roll with it. But you should not be organizing your books to have an aesthetic to make it appealing to other people. It should be appealing to you. And again, if the aesthetic makes you happy, go for it. But if it doesn't make you happy, don't go for it. So the next one is being okay with not liking every single book I read. Because I mentioned this a little bit later, but reading is subjective and reviews are subjective. And yes, there are a lot of books that, yes, there are books that are not open to as much interpretation, and there are books that have messaging that is not open to a whole lot of interpretation and subjectiveness. But as a whole, reading, the action is very personal and very subjective. So you are not going to like every single book that you read. I'm not going to like every single book that I read. And that is okay, and that's part of the experience. And if you're expecting to love every single book that you read, then that's, I think, is a surefire way to get into a reading slump, because you're like, I'm expecting to love this book, I don't love it. Next book you go into, you may like it, but you don't love it. And the next book you go into, you love it, and then the fourth book you go into, or the fifth book, or whatever number we're on, you expect to love it again, you don't like it. And then it just, like, there's that flip-flopping around where it's like the expectations aren't always met, and then you end up ignoring yourself. So you're like, that's something you just have to learn. You have to learn. That's just something that everyone has to learn. I'm still learning it too. But being okay with not loving every book that you read, that is okay. It is normal. It is part of being human. The next one is kind of related, but being okay with not liking trending book talk books. And I use book talk sort of loosely, sort of not loosely, but book talk tends to recommend a set style of book. Not that that's a bad thing, and they're trending for a reason. However, that does not, just because they are trending and just because they are trending for a reason, does not mean that you will like them. It does not mean you will love them. You may enjoy them in the moment, you may like them in the moment, but it doesn't mean you'll love them as much as all these people who are talking about the books on Book Talk are loving those books. So being okay with not liking trending Book Talk books. You may hate it, and that is perfectly okay. And again, reading is subjective. So you're not going to like every single trending book talk book, no matter how or why it's trending. And even if it has tropes or plot developments that you like, you might not like the execution of that specific book, which is also okay. So, next one is kind of similar, because I'm trying not to bash book talk too much, because book talk has its good sides and its bad sides, like every niche on social media does. So, the next one is letting myself enjoy trending book talk books, and I'm gonna put these two together, but the next two, letting myself enjoy trending book talk books and letting myself not enjoy trending book talk books. Once again, reading is subjective, and sometimes you're gonna like them, sometimes you're not gonna like them. But reading is subjective. You're not gonna like every single book that you read. You're not gonna like every single book that's popular, and that's part of life. That's a part of humanity. So the next one is understanding that reading is subjective. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to talk about this one too much because I was already talking about it a little bit, but reading is very personal. And yes, there are some books, some material, some messages that have a very limited, narrow room for interpretation and different interpretations, but reading is still highly subjective. Like, for example, Burnt Down Master's House by Clay King. I do not have a physical copy, but Burnt Down Master's House by Clay King, that has a very specific message in it that does not have a lot of room for interpretation about what exactly Burnt Down Master's House is about. But it does have room for interpretation if you're looking at like something a little bit more personal. Like if you've been essayed, you can see yourself in that story, even though you may never have been in a position. Well, I would hope you've never been in a position where you've had to be a slave or be in enslaved like positions, but you may have still experienced essay, or you may have still experienced manipulation or coercion. Um, so it's that kind of a thing where some stories have a very narrow view of interpretation based on what the story actually is, even if it's fiction, but there are still other parts of that story that is very personal. So Understanding reading is subjective, and it's personalized. It's not necessarily personalized, but it can be personalized based on your interpretation of that book. So the next one, kind of similar, but understanding that star ratings are subjective. My 5-star is going to be different from your 5-star, and different from Sue's 5-star, and different from Mary's 5-star. My 3-star is going to be different from your 3-star, from John's 3-star, and from David's 5-star, or 3 stars, excuse me. And then my 1-star, usually, like, yes, there is like the overarching, like, 5 stars is amazing, 1 star is terrible. But the way you end up rating it, and the way you end up using that star rating system, the way it ends up being used from person to person is highly subjective. The next one is de-influencing myself from the unspoken concept that reading is a challenge. Now, it is an unspoken concept. And I don't say rule because it's not a rule, but it's an unspoken concept because of bookish social media, because of BookTube, because of BookTok, because of Bookstagram. You see people doing reading wrap-ups and reading TBRs, which I love watching this because I can discover new books from them. But you see people doing wrap-ups, TBR piles, reading vlogs, and then you see them doing like 2, 3, 4, 5+ books in a wrap-up book, in a reading vlog, in a TBR pile. Sometimes it'll be like 10+ books in one of these videos, and that is not realistic for everyone. And that sometimes will make it seem like reading is a challenge, like, this person read 10 books in January, and I have to read 10 books in February now because they read 10 books in January. Or, that person set 200 books for their yearly reading challenge, I have to set 250, or I have to set 200 to be able to match them. Reading is not a competition, it's not a challenge, and you're meant to do this at your own pace because it is a hobby. 9 times out of 10, it is a hobby. So the next one is kind of related, but not trying to read the same as others, whether it's books, the number of books, the length of books, genres, etc. And that is because, like I've said, reading is subjective and tastes are subjective, and tastes are going to change and vary from person to person to person. Like, one of my really good friends loves romance books, but I have a really hard time with a lot of modern romance books and the romance genre. And ideally, I like romance. I cannot deal with a lot of the romance books today. I do read quite a bit of romance. It's just books that are under the romance genre specifically. But, like, I'm not going to be trying to read the same books as my one friend who really likes romance, because a lot of hers are very heavily romance centered, whereas a lot of mine, some of them might be a little bit more romance centered or romance heavy, but I would say a majority of mine are not romance heavy. There's romance in a lot of my books, but it's not romance heavy. So it's like, I'm not going to read the same as my one friend. So it's like not trying to read the same. And she's also like, I also read a lot more books than my one friend. And a lot of my books are longer than the ones she reads, but she's not going to try to read longer books or the same authors or as many as I do just because I'm doing that. So reading is subjective, like we've already established. So the next one is to post about books to social media because I want to post about books to social media, and not because it's what's expected. And one thing that's really helped, at least in terms of my YouTube channel, is I've never expected anything from this YouTube channel. I just post videos because I like talking about books. And I've actively taken breaks. So I post weekly, I post weekly to YouTube. And this past February, I was posting every single day just to try something out and do a little experiment. But I post weekly, and there will be times where I take a full month off of posting, which, if I were trying to make a job out of this, which I'm not, but if I were trying to make a job out of this, that would be considered detrimental. Would it be nice to make some money off of this? Sure. But, I'm not trying to make a job out of it. I'm not trying to make this my career. I just enjoy talking about books. And you should not be posting to social media about books, whether it's BookTube, Bookstagram, BookTok, BookTwitter. You shouldn't be posting about books to social media because it's expected or because other people are posting to social media about books. You should be posting about books to social media because you want to post about books to social media. So the next one, I believe we're on number 17, is no, that was 17. So 18 is engaging with other readers about reading. Now, again, you might just need to step back and just stop reading, but that doesn't mean you have to stop engaging with other readers about reading. Commenting on videos, commenting on posts, sharing reels, reposting stuff. Like, engage with other readers about reading because that can get you excited to read again. And it can get the conversation flowing. And it's like, oh, you like this? Like, let's say you comment on a book or you comment on a post about a book you really enjoyed, saying like, oh, I really like this book too. I like how it did X, Y, Z. And then someone else could respond like, hey, you really like this one? I know another book you can like or you might like. So it gets the conversation going, it keeps you engaged with reading, and it gets you excited to read more. So engage with other readers about reading on social media or in person. You can go to your library, see if there's a book club, you can see if there's a local independent bookstore, or even like a larger bookstore in the area. But engage with other readers about reading. So, number 19, second to last, is setting up a consistent time that is dedicated to reading, even if I don't read during that set time. Now, this might seem a little bit, what's the word, hypocritical almost, or pointless almost, but it's like if I have a set time to read, then I have that time to look forward to reading. And even if I don't read during that set time, it's like I saw, like, because, like I mentioned earlier in this video, sometimes life happens. Sometimes I have other responsibilities to attend to, and I can't read during the time. And sometimes I just don't feel like reading. So, yeah, sometimes life happens. Sometimes our minds happen. But still having that set time to read, whether it's in the morning as you're eating breakfast, or on your way to work, or on your way to school, or right before bed, or while you're doing like a self-care routine, you listen to an audiobook. Like, have that set time be dedicated to reading, and then that can really help you get excited for reading again. So, again, even if you don't read, because like I've said quite a few times now, life happens, our minds happen, and sometimes shit happens. So, anyway, moving on to the very last one, which is kind of related, but also its own thing. But letting myself read when I feel like reading. Now, this is related to the first one and the second one that I did, where it's letting myself just read or just not read. But if I feel like reading, I'm gonna sit down and read if I can. And even if it's not in the dedicated time that I've set aside for reading, like if I feel like reading, I'm gonna sit down, pick up the book, enjoy the book in the moment. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, even if it's just for a page. If I feel like reading in that moment, I'm gonna read in that moment, which is the most important thing you can do. So I'm going to stop talking here because we've been talking for quite a bit now, and I want to know your thoughts down below in the comments. So if you made it this far in the video, let me know what got you in love with reading me and whether it's a specific book. Although I do have my specific books coming up in the next 2 weeks after this. If it was a specific book, if it was a content creator, if it was an author, if it was an event or something, let me know what your thoughts. Let me know what got words. Jeez. Let me know down below in the comments what got you falling in love with reading. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.